Thank you all for the introduction and welcome to all the potential investors here at this share stock presentation on European green transition, which is a new AIM company listed on AIM in April of this year. And we are operating in the European green economy with the aim to identify undervalued assets and take advantage of opportunities in the European green energy transition. And for those of you who may be following us, you may have seen today that we announced the interim results for the 6 months to the end of June 2024. And again, we just announced some of the achievements to date. So we had that raise with the IPO of 6.5 million back in April, a very successful fundraise and admission to trading. And also subsequent to that, we've announced 2 option agreements on exciting projects. One is a copper tailings recycling project in Cyprus, and the other is a carbon credit and biodiversity credit project in the northwest of Ireland over a very large 1,400-acre peatland area. So, and Jack Kelly, who's joining me on this presentation, is the CFO, and he can talk through some of those in more detail. But I also wanted to mention the Olserum project. That's where I've just come back from a recent drilling project there aimed at showing the district scale potential of that rare earth system. So I'll take you through that project in more detail on this presentation. And I suppose the key point as well from the results we announced today is that we also have a very strong cash position, £4.9 million in the bank as of end of June, which gives us sufficient capital to implement EGT strategy of targeting revenue or near revenue opportunities in the green economy. So just before we go on, there is a disclaimer that is aimed at just in case of forward-looking statements. We may mention some drill results or potential drill results and other opportunities. And just to give a background on the company, I'm joined by Jack Kelly. He's the CFO, chartered accountant. I'm a chartered geologist as well. And I suppose this company started out in metals. It has broadened its scope to target other green economy assets and opportunities. And one of the key investors and co-founders is Cathal Friel, who some people may be familiar with. He's been involved with several previous IPOs and companies such as Peatland Pharma, which has current market cap of around over 50 million. HVivo, which he had a successful exit from. That's a 200 million market cap AIM company. And previous successful exits were Amrit, which was sold for 1.3 billion in early last year. So we have a really solid team behind us at European Green Transition with a lot of experience in small cap and AIM companies. So this map shows the assets that we currently have. As I mentioned, we started out in metals. Our lead asset at the IPO was the Olserum Rare Earth Project. And this is one of Europe's leading rare earth resources. We've just completed a low-risk drill program there aimed at showing the district scale potential with some very positive initial findings, and we're hoping to monetize that project. We're already in discussion with some companies about that. And the other asset, which is very exciting, is the copper graphite project in North Sweden, and we're looking to vend that project and also discussing the potential there with other parties. We have a peatland carbon credit project in the northwest of Ireland and a Cyprus copper tailings project. I'll leave those to Jack to talk about later on. I'll bring you through the Olserum resource first, the Olserum project located in South Sweden. This is a European rare earth element project. Rare earths are very important. They're critical strategic metals used in supermagnets for wind turbines, EV motors, and a range of other applications. And as of yet, Europe has no domestic supply, so these are potentially very important resources for the green energy transition in Europe. So the Olserum project, it's a national interest project in Sweden. It was designated a national interest project by the Swedish Geological Survey in May of last year, and that recognises the importance of the rare earths here. It has a historic resource of about 7.8 million tonnes at 0.6% total rare earth oxide. When we acquired this from Swedish vendors, we recognized that there was a lot of upside. Much of the work was done on this project between 2003 and 2005, with another 5 holes drilled in 2013. And all of that work was really focused on that original Olserum resource area that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. There was very little other surface data available when we acquired this from the Swedish vendors early last year. So during that due diligence, we recognized that there was a lot more potential. We just basically discovered a new deposit model, started stepping out with mapping and sampling, all very low cost work, identified several new targets. We conducted ground magnetic surveys, rock chip sampling, channel sampling, and basically identified a whole range of outcropping targets with mineralization that had never been drill tested. So we just completed a 1,500-meter drill program. 10 of those holes were at the Jupadal prospect, which is about 2.5 kilometers northwest of the historic Olserum resource. And then 3 holes were at Olserum West, which is about 300 meters northwest of the resource. And the Jupadal prospect alone, that's about 1 kilometer long. So very strong footprint there of alteration, very strong magnetic anomaly throughout that area caused by hydrothermal magnetite, which is associated with the rare earths. And that footprint of Jupadal alone is greater than the Olserum resource area. So we're very pleased. The initial observations from drill core are positive. We intersected broad alteration and visible phosphate, rare earth phosphate mineralization in every hole there. And then we drilled 3 holes at Olserum West, and that was also very successful in locating the structure which runs through that resource and off to the northwest of the historic resource. So we picked up that in drill core. The assays are at the lab. The samples have arrived. The core will be cut at the lab and then assayed by ALS in Sweden. So we expect to get results in later H2, but we're very pleased with those positive observations from the drill core. So we're working on the data now and pending those assays, putting all the data together and speaking to other parties about this project, which I'm pleased to say is very encouraging. We have, I think, confirmed the district scale potential for this project through this drill program. It was a very low cost drill program. We set out to spend less than 10% of the IPO raise on this. And our aim is now to vend this project to partners to monetize the asset. And just to mention that we had positive metallurgical results as well released in July. And this shows that the mineralization here at Olserum and Jupadal is amenable to simple processing, and we can produce a rare earth concentrate through magnetic separation and flotation, which is a very simple and standard process used in most of the base metal mines around the world. So we've essentially de-risked this project with all of the work that we've completed to date, and we now look forward to talking to partners and advancing discussions to move this project along and see value for shareholders. So I think just to talk through the other assets, I'll let Jack Kelly join and talk about the recent option agreements that we've signed.
Thank you very much, Aidan. So just bringing you back to this map, just to give you an idea of the other options with the other assets we have within our current portfolio. As Aidan mentioned, we've broadened our remit across the wider green economy to not only include metals and minerals, but also solar, recycling, wind projects, and some of the key services that support these areas, with a particular emphasis on projects that are revenue generating currently or have a clear pathway to near-term revenue generation. So that's really the key focus in everything we're doing is, are the assets we have or we're looking at, can we see a clear pathway to generating revenue and ultimately profitability and cash flows. So the project we have down in Cyprus, I'll just talk about this for a minute. So, this is the Cyprus Copper Tailings Recycling Project. So, we took a 12-month option agreement on the historic Limni copper mine in West Cyprus. So, this is an 8.1 million ton mine that had a grade of 1.11% copper, and it was mined commercially between 1937 and 1978. So, it ceased production in around the time of partition in Cyprus. So at the time, the mine is about 2 to 3 kilometers away from the coast, and all the tailings or the leftover metals and minerals from the mine were left down at the coast, about 2 or 3 kilometers away, and were left there for 30 years. So an EU-funded program backfilled these tailings, so took them from the coast and put them back into the historic Limni pit. As a result of this, there's copper is clearly evident within those tailings. The copper has oxidized and is now leaking from the pit in a blue azure colored water due to the oxidized tailings. So this is creating, a very damaging and toxic environment for the nearby vegetation and surrounding area. So I think the key focus of this project is it's a rehabilitation project. So this is a large historic site that is requires rehabilitation. There's been a number of environmental studies that have shown that the land is toxic and has a damaging effect on local people, local agriculture, and the surrounding area. But as part of this rehabilitation process, there's a huge opportunity for us to actually extract copper from the historic tailings through a low-cost hydraulic pumping system. So we'll use a containerized water treatment solution, which you can put on the side of the existing site, and it's extremely capital efficient, but most importantly, it can lead us to generating revenue from the project in the near future. Additionally, and something that we're really excited by this project is the sort of second bite of the cherry we can get with the potential for this site for a solar power plant in the future. So, as we rehabilitate this site, we look to partner with an established solar developer or operator to develop this site for solar production. So obviously Cyprus is a great location for this, given it has some of the highest solar irradiance in the EU, given its geographic position. But also Cyprus relies extensively on fossil fuels at the moment. It makes up in excess of 80% of its current energy mix. So they're under huge pressure from the EU to actually bring on these renewable projects, which just aren't coming on fast enough in Cyprus. There's a power substation located adjacent to the site. So we think there's huge potential to firstly rehabilitate this site and then secondly benefit from the solar potential downstream. So as part of our option, we've conducted an initial diligence phase, which we got results from a couple of months back. We took 68 samples. We had results which confirmed the presence of copper. There were samples ranging from 0.14 to 0.92% in the sulfur crust that sat at surface. So this is evidence that the water that has come up to the surface at the site contained copper, which is really, really encouraging. There's also potential for gold down the line. Now, we won't be exploring or investing any capital exploring for this gold, but it gives us extra optionality for the project down the line, and we can look to maybe do deals around the potential for gold licenses for third parties. So at present, the next stage of diligence is ongoing. I was over in Cyprus a couple of weeks ago, meeting with some of the key stakeholders there, and they're very supportive of the initiative. They're really encouraged by the prospects of us rehabilitating a toxic site and then getting the long-term benefits of a potential solar site in the facility. So this is it's really encouraging, and we're very, very excited by where the project can go in the coming months. We have a few key diligence steps to move through, and then we'll look to make a decision on the option.
Okay.
So
sorry,
the
Jack,
next,
can we wrap it? Have you got like a couple of, can you finish off in a couple of minutes or thereabouts?
Yeah, I'll finish up in 2 minutes. So the next option agreement we have is around the Altan peatland carbon credit project. So we're exploring the potential to develop a peatland carbon sink program to generate carbon credits here. So this is a site up in Donegal, where there's degraded peatland at the moment, and we're looking to scale it. So we have 1,400 acres at the moment. We're talking with local landowners to expand the area, and then talking with off-takers and potential funders to see if we can start generating credits in the near term from this site. A key point here, and the last point I'll mention on the carbon credit project, is that we're not looking to acquire the land. So this would be a revenue or a cost sharing model with the landowner, and so to keep it as capital efficient as possible. So, Mike, I'll just quickly run through this last slide in a minute. But really, it's the near term activities that we have within EGT to generate value, and the key things we're focusing on in the coming months. So, as I mentioned, huge opportunity for revenue stage green economy assets, particularly as interest rates have risen over the last couple of years. There's a huge number of assets we think we can get our hands on for 10, 20, 30 cent on the euro or pound that's been invested into it, and there's huge potential for uplift there. As Aidan mentioned, we've a proven team with a track record of generating value across a number of AIM companies, and we're confident we can do it again with EGT. We have assay results from the Olserum drill program coming out later this year, and they will be key to monetizing this project down the line. I talked about the due diligence we're currently conducting on the Cyprus copper tailings recycling project and the carbon credit project, and we're very encouraged by both of these projects and looking to accelerate these over the coming months. And then the final point is the Pajala copper project we have up in northern Sweden, again an ex-Anglo-American project with big potential, and we're talking to a number of parties about potentially vending that out and realizing additional value for the shareholders. So, Mike, that's the end of our presentation. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Jack. Excellent. Yeah, it's quite tight, isn't it? But we just want to get a feel for things. I think that was a good run through. Yeah, we've got a few. Bear with me here. We've got one saying, for your company you've set up, I know you recently listed. It says you have set up an EPIP for 3 key staff and issued 2.3 million options at a virtually zero cost. I would prefer today's share price. Okay. What are the key performance targets in the plan in order for it to vest?
Yeah, so Mike, the key target is that the share price has to increase 85% above the IPO price. So we're at 11.25p today. So we're 12.5% above the IPO price. So it's set up so that as we increase the share price, that's how we unlock it. So we have to get to 18.5p.
Right, 18.5p. That's the only condition that everything vests at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and to remain obviously within the company.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What level of radionuclides were detected in your samples of Olserum? Do you know yet? I know that's probably premature, is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're waiting on assays from the other targets and drill holes from the recent program. The historic resource had an average of less than 200 ppm, so that's quite low. And we know there are areas where there's variability, so it varies from very, very low to sort of locally moderate. But overall, it's a very clean resource, and there's also no sulfides associated with the phosphate mineralization, so there's no potential for acid mine drainage either.
Okay, so you think at that level there won't be any special processing of the radionuclides required?
Well, the flotation would produce concentrate, which would be processed at like any other concentrate that leaves the mine, will be processed at a specialist treatment facility. So that could be outside Europe, or it could be in a potentially new site that there's a lot of investment going into rare earth processing in Europe. Just across the border in Estonia, there's a company called Neo Metals. There's a new plant being proposed for Norway, and also rare earth processing proposed for new plants in France. So it's down the line. It's for the next company, really. We're looking to vend the asset, and we've done what we can to de-risk that and have metallurgical results as well to show.
Okay. How long would you be able to extract copper through pumping be practical? I think it means how long would you practically be able to extract copper through pumping, in your view?
Yeah, at the Limni pit, we have some initial calculations to suggest it will be a few years, depending on the permeability and porosity. So we're working with consultants, looking at the OPEX and CAPEX of that. But ultimately, that's part of the story for this site. The longer term is to have a cleaned up site that can generate solar energy as well, working with solar energy partners on that. So there's a lot of optionality around that site in Limni. It's essentially unused waste ground, but with a lot of copper still there, potentially some gold, and an excellent site for solar energy.
Okay, I take it from what the business model you're trying to operate here, that would you be doing a full and paying for a full scoping study for Olserum, or are you looking to vend it before you get to that stage?
Well, we're looking to vend it before we get to that stage.
Right. Okay. So you haven't got that cost. Okay. So that's relatively early in the development process, basically, with the results from what you're doing at the moment, and that's about as far as you're going to take it.
Yeah, that's the plan at present.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. One question here: how much cash do you expect to burn in the next 12 months?
Yeah. So that's from John. So yeah, we announced we had 4.9 million at 30th of June. So we have a very capital light model. So we have 3 full-time staff, myself, Aidan, and one more member of staff. I think we guided the market that we'd spend less than 10% of the funds raised at IPO on the mining assets, and Olserum and Aidan's program has successfully done that. And I think with the focus now really being on revenue stage assets, bringing stuff in that's first of all revenue and getting it to profitability and getting it to cash flows, that's the real focus. So there's no issue with runway here. We have a very low overhead, so there's no issue with runway or a future fundraise.
It sounds like, so it sounds like at least for a year or so, there's not going to be any fundraise unless some new project comes up.
Yeah, well beyond that, we're looking to bring in businesses that we can actually start generating cash, in the next year, 18 months, 24 months.
Okay. There's a question here on who your potential partners at Olserum might be. Is there anything you can share with us already there?
Yeah, I mean, there's several ASX and TSX companies operating in the resource space in Northern Europe and Scandinavia. We're talking to some of those. I suppose the key thing for us was to de-risk the project, show that there's a lot of upside with the district scale rare earth system. Pending our assays, I believe we've shown that. We look forward to the results, and that will really be a key. Those results will be a key requirement for incoming partners as well. So I can't give exact names, but we are talking to people, and there's several potential parties out there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting business model, but the breadth interests me, because you're becoming almost the jack of all trades to do with green technology rather than a master of any particular technology. There's that danger, isn't there? Does that worry you at all, kind of covering the spread from wind farms to recovery from copper to, rare earth and so on and so on?
I think, Mike, we just want to be very opportunistic in what we focus on. I think having multiple shots on goal de-risks us to a certain extent. There's quite a number of companies, particularly in the resources space, that have struggled when they focus really on one asset, and particularly an asset that goes a long way away from revenues. So that's really what we're focusing on is getting assets within our portfolio that are close to being revenue generating and can ultimately stand on their own 2 feet.
Okay, thank you. Aidan, Jack, thanks very much for that. That was I realised that was a very quick sort of dip into your world at the moment. So hopefully that give everybody a good flavour, and they can no doubt follow up with more investigations in due course. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Right, back to Pavlina, if you've got the slides. And interestingly, we've got a sort of another resource discussion coming up next, because we have here Altona Rare Earths. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Cedric Simonet, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Altona. Cedric, welcome to your first share stock presentation, and I'll hand over to you now and catch up in sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so, and try and get through the questions with you. So over to you.
Thank you. All right, let's skip the presentation slide to go to the next one. So Altona Rare Earths is a microcap company listed on the London Stock Exchange, on the LSE, on the main market, since June 2023. Previously, we were on Aquis. Our current market cap is about £2.3 million. Altona has a long history, but I will start where I got involved, roughly around 2020, at a time when the company had dropped coal assets in Australia, which were not developable, and was getting into the rare earth sector, looking for projects. And I was initially involved to help sourcing projects. We secured the Monte Muambe Rare Earth Project in Mozambique back in 2021. I became the COO of the company. And we, since June 2023, I'm the CEO of the company. So I'll just introduce a little bit our board. We are few people. I'm the CEO. I'm a geologist by training. I have close to 30 years experience in mining and exploration, in geology positions, but also a lot in business management positions. And most of this experience is in Africa. I'm actually based in Africa, between Kenya and Mozambique, where the action is. My colleague, Louise Adrian, our CFO, has also been with the company for a while as financial controller, and became CFO of the company again when we listed on the LSE in June last year. Louise is a chartered accountant with a lot of experience in the energy and mining sector. Our non-executive chairman, Simon Charles, is a lawyer with Marriott Harrison, which is a very well-known city law firm. And we have another non-executive director who joined us recently, Chris Anderson. He's the CEO of Ironveld. Ironveld is a company that produces specialty metals in South Africa. So this board is very small, only 2 execs and 2 non-execs, and that reflects a lot our philosophy. We are trying to keep our corporate expenditures as low as possible, because we want to maximize the use of our resources on the ground, on projects and on acquisitions, to make sure that our existing resources are used as much as possible to bring value to our investors. Our main investors right now are a company called Trakarta Limited, which is a private investment company, and a gentleman called Richard Jennings. Trakarta and Richard were cornerstones investors in the last fundraise we did back in July, and we raised 1.3 million. So we are funded to do our current activities. The other major investors, you've got Optiva Securities, which is our former broker. Christian Taylor Wilkinson is our former CEO, and the current board of the company holds 3.58% of the company. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we are focused on Africa. We are focused on critical metals. Initially, that was rare earths, but recently we decided to spread our portfolio into other commodities. Our flagship project is still the Monte Muambe Rare Earth and Fluorspar project in Mozambique. I will say a little bit more about it shortly. As we are expanding our portfolio, we are trying to find projects in tier 1 jurisdictions in Africa, jurisdictions that are very investor-friendly, and we can see we are now in Zambia and Botswana, and these are the top two. These are the top two mining jurisdictions in Africa, we would say, together with Namibia. We are looking for projects and we are acquiring projects that have good technical merits, of course, but we are also looking for projects with low acquisition costs and low cost to initial exploration results to initial news flow. This is quite important for us. We are very, again, cost conscious. Let me say a few words about the Kabompo South Copper project in Zambia, which is quite an interesting project. So this project obviously has potential for copper. The project has got quite a lot of legacy geophysical data, both ground and airborne. It's a very interesting project. And I was on site actually just 2 weeks ago to check access conditions and to look at the geology on the ground. I was very happy to see that an occurrence, which is a copper occurrence, a sedimentary copper occurrence, which is just outside the license, has been put into production. There is no small mine there. And the same rock formations extend inside the license. And then beside copper, this license also has potential for diamond. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, De Beers did some exploration. There were diamonds found in the area and in the river which is crossing the license. So that's quite interesting. And what we are busy doing right now is reprocessing and reassessing the geophysical data, both for sedimentary copper deposits, targets, and also looking at the possible presence of kimberlites. So that's what we are doing with Kabompo. The Sesana Copper project, I should say Copper Silver project in Botswana, is very interesting. It's in the Kalahari Copper Belt. The Kalahari Copper Belt is kind of a new copper province of Africa. It extends through Botswana and Namibia. There are already 2 operating mines. And one of these mines is just 25 kilometers from our Sesana project on the same structures, on the same type of structure. And that mine is currently expanding its activities. So it's a very interesting, very exciting project. Let's go to the next slide. So this is about Monte Muambe. Monte Muambe is a rare earth and fluorite project. Neodymium and praseodymium represent about 70 to 80% of the value contained in the ground. And then another 10 to 20% is terbium and dysprosium. Neodymium and praseodymium are very important for the green energy transition because they are used to make permanent magnets. And these permanent magnets are used in turn in wind turbines, in drivetrains for electric vehicles, and they are also used beside lots of applications like cell phones, computers. They are also used to manufacture joints for robots, and we are coming into an era of robotics. So the green energy transition right now cannot happen with neodymium and praseodymium, and it is estimated that the consumption of neodymium and praseodymium by 2040 will be about 3 times what it is now, and it's a huge quantity. So we are very bullish on the consumption of neodymium and praseodymium, on the market for these elements, and also on the increase of prices in the near term. The project is located in northwest Mozambique, in Tete province. It's a very safe and mature region of Southern Africa. We are just next to 3 major coal mines, and there is also a large iron and steel project. So it's really a mining region. There is very good infrastructure, access to green energy from the Cahora Bassa hydropower dam, which is in the same province. We have access to 2 railway lines to Indian Ocean ports, the Nacala corridor and the Sena line. A very good place to have a project. You can see on the photo, on the bottom side of the slide, Monte Muambe, the mountain. So it looks a lot like a volcano. It's not actually a volcano. It's just an erosion feature. The carbonatite, which is a rock formation that contains the rare earths and the fluorspar, is inside this basin. If you look carefully, you can see a little brown hill in the middle of the basin, and that's one of the rare earth targets. So rare earths are not located everywhere in the basin. We did a very thorough soil sampling survey. We identified 11 different rare earth targets, and so far we've drilled only 2. So we've drilled so far since 2021 7,800 meters, and we were able to define a maiden resource estimate, JORC resource estimate, of 13.6 million tons with 2.42% total rare earth oxide. And that was very, very exciting, especially because 60% of this resource estimate is already in the indicated category, the rest being in the inferred category. This is quite rare for maiden resource estimates. They tend to be mostly inferred. And this is not by luck, this is by design. We have designed our drilling campaigns not to produce huge numbers, not to drill for numbers which are meaningless, but to produce a resource that could ultimately be converted entirely into a reserve and ultimately be mined. So 13.6 million tons is a very good starting point for us. As I said, we've drilled only 2 targets out of 11, so it is obvious that there is potential to increase the size of the resource. In October last year, we produced a scoping study for this project, considering the production of 15,000 tons per year of mixed rare earth carbonate over a period of 18 years. So we would have 2 open pits, very low strip ratio, 1.6 strip ratio, so very, very cheap open pit mining. And then we would have a beneficiation plant to produce a concentrate. And then next to that plant, we would have a hydrometallurgy plant to leach the rare earths from the concentrate and to produce a synthetic product, a mixed rare earth carbonate. The NPV of the scoping study came out at $283.3 million, an IRR of 25% for a capex of $276 million. So that gave us the green light to go into the pre-feasibility study. Through the scoping study, so we have an earn-in agreement with the original owners of the license. Our ownership increased to 51%, and at the end of the PFS, it will increase to 70%. We applied for a mining concession in December 2023. We expect it will be out very shortly, and that's very important for us because this is one way to de-risk, to continue de-risking the project. Our PFS activities right now are focused on metallurgy. There is a lot of potential upside that we are expecting to derive from this metallurgy. In the scoping study, we considered that the grade of the concentrate would be 10% TREO, but we know we can get higher, and this is what we are busy proving now. And this is very important because getting the grade of the concentrate from the beneficiation plant from 10 to 20% is going to slash the costs, the OPEX and the CAPEX of the hydrometallurgy plant, and these are the biggest costs in the project. So we are expecting from this current metallurgical test work lots of benefits in terms of cost cutting for the OPEX and the CAPEX. The rock that contains the rare earths also contains disseminated fluorspar, about 15%. So while we are doing the metallurgy, we are also looking at the possibility of extracting fluorspar as a byproduct from the rare earths. But at Montemouambé, there is also another context where you find fluorspar. There are some veins in the western part of the intrusion, which are very, very high grade, up to 70% fluorspar. And that's very interesting because it opens up the possibility to set up very rapidly a fluorspar mine, basically using these veins, a small-scale fluorspar mine. Which will bring revenue for the company. So this is something I'm using a lot my own experience as a geologist on a fluorspar mine in France. I worked for 3 years on the fluorspar mine. We had actually 2 open pits and 1 underground mine and 2 processing plants. So I've got a lot of experience with that with fluorspar. One last point I would like to highlight on this slide is that you can see this basin, this Montemouambé, is just forest. Nobody lives there. There is no communities, there are no natural reserves. There is very little wildlife. So will be, once we start developing the mine, there will be very, very little relocation of communities, which is very good. It's something else that simplifies and de-risks the project. And in this basin, it's a very interesting setup because you've got enough space to put the open pits, the waste dumps, the plants, the camp, the tailings storage facility, and there will still be a lot of space left to maintain the forest around the mining operation. So we'll be able to integrate the mining operation with its environment, and through that natural barrier around it, to keep it completely separate from the rest of the world. Which is very important in terms of environment. Altona wants to become a responsible and reliable source of critical minerals. So the environmental side of our activities is extremely important to us.
Right, thanks, Cedric. We're all out of time. That's 16 minutes. Is there anything else specifically in the last 20 seconds that you'd like to do? I'm just keen to get to the Q&A, that we've got some questions coming in now. So
let's get to the Q&A. I'm sure there will be some very pertinent questions.
Right, sorry to interrupt, but plenty of information there about the site. So what we've got here is from Mike Wells. Right, we've got your website refers to a scoping study and says that it is available elsewhere on the website, but I can only find the summary report that you issued in the October 23 RNS. Can you tell me where I can find the full report?
All right, so you can find, if you look at the website, there is an investor section which works with Investor Hub, which Mike has just introduced a little bit earlier. If you look in the document section and you scroll down, you will find it there. But I've received remarks from several people that it's a little bit difficult to find it, so I'm going to organize to have it put also on the homepage of the website.
All right, thank you, Cedric. That sounds as a good idea. Thank you. What will you do with the radionuclides that you remove during the refining process?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So the radionuclide levels at Montemouambé are roughly 250 ppm for thorium and 20 to 30 ppm for uranium. So for a carbonatite setup, it's kind of average, rather on the lower side. One of the benefits, there are several benefits why we want to have both the flotation plant, the beneficiation plant, and the hydrometallurgy plant. Of course, it adds more value to the project, especially in country, which is also important for us. But one of the benefits is that when you produce the carbonate in the hydrometallurgy plant, you are able to extract the radionuclides and as well part of the cerium. which is one of the low-value rare earths. So the radionuclides will not be transported out of the site. We will not have any issues with radioactivity in containers or anything like this. They will be disposed of safely, and there will be studies on this as part of the PFS, but they will be disposed of safely in the tailings storage facility. You have to imagine that in 1 ton of rock, if you remove 2% or 2.4% of rare earths, which is the interesting part that you want to take out, then that means that the concentration of all the other elements is increased only very, very marginally. Right. So I think that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Just picking up on the rare earth concentrate. The question here is, who do you expect to offtake your rare earth concentrate product?
So we are not going to offtake the concentrate product. We are going to offtake the carbonate product.
Right. You're going to go all the way to carbonate. Okay.
Yes, we want to do that value addition on site. And as part of the PFS, we will look even at the possible part separation of neodymium and praseodymium oxide.
Okay.
Right now, there are not many options outside of China, but these options are growing and are growing rapidly. It's quite interesting that we are looking at potential strategic partners to come in and join in the development of Monte-Muambe. We've seen a lot of interest from the US government, but we've also seen interest from private companies. And I can't give names, obviously, but we've seen interest from companies that are currently producing small quantities of rare earth alloys, which want to grow to a certain level, and that will take them a certain amount of time. And we found that there is a very, very good fit between their timeline of development and ours. So, as I said, we are still doing a lot of metallurgy. One of the output of the metallurgy is the actual final product that will be sold. So it's a little bit too early for us to get into any sort of offtake agreement. We don't have samples of the product yet. Once we get them as part of the outputs of the metallurgy that we are doing, we will be able to start talking about offtake agreements.
Okay, thank you. When do you expect to embark on and complete a definitive feasibility study, and how much do you expect the study to cost?
Yeah, we expect that the pre-feasibility study is going to take about 18 months. And the definitive feasibility study, how much is going to cost? It's a bit hard to tell right now, but that will be obviously after the pre-feasibility study. I'm expecting a cost around $5-6 million for a project like this. And an interesting thing is that there is a lot of support available for definitive feasibility studies. So we are not very, very concerned with right now with the funding of the definitive feasibility studies.
Oh, okay. So you don't expect to have to go to the market for funding for that stage?
No, not for that stage.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then when you get onto the actual investment itself of what, $280 million or so, I mean, how would you expect to fund that? I know it's perhaps a bit early in the process, but is there any thinking you can share with us there?
It's very early in the process, but historically, some Western governments have funded or co-funded the development of critical mineral projects in Mozambique. So it wouldn't be the first time. So we think we will be able to get some support on that side. And also we are in Southern Africa. It's a region of Africa which has a lot of experience in terms of mining. We are just next to South Africa. So we think we'll be able to package project finance for Monte-Muambe.
And in terms of Mozambique's as a jurisdiction, and what's the kind of permitting process there in very brief terms, and how long do you expect it to take? Okay,
so Mozambique is a very bureaucratic country. There is no denying this. But honestly, as long as you do your paperwork right, and as long as you prepare it in advance, you don't run into too many difficulties. So as I've said, we applied for a mining concession with a 25 years duration in December. Right now, the project is still under the prospecting license. We understand that this mining concession is going to be granted within the next few months, possibly weeks, so very, very soon. Once you get the mining concession, there are two other things you need to be able to mine. One is the land rights. They are called duat in Portuguese. And we have already started the process of acquiring these land rights as much as it could be done before we get the concession. We can only finalize it once we get the concession, and we are ready to finalize it. So we expect this one will be sorted out very quickly also. And the remaining prerequisite for mining is environmental impact assessment, which will be done in parallel with the pre-feasibility study.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much,
So
Cedric.
it's quite under control.
Okay. Thank you, Cedric. Right. We're out of questions. So, we're bang on time. So thank you. Thank you very much for sharing the latest news with us for Altona.